All right, it's 11 o'clock. Ricky, are we online? So, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Mike Benson, Mayor Pro Tem, filling in today for Mayor McDermott, who is out of town this week. So I'd like to welcome those of you in the audience as well as those of you watching or will watch online to our November 1st Board of Aldermen regular meeting. First on our agenda is invocation by Alderman Grant, and please remain standing after the invocation.
Please bow your head. Please bow your heads. Bless this town, and may it remain a beautiful and friendly place to live. We pray that this board makes fair and informed decisions this morning. We also pray that our police officers, firefighters, and members of the armed services here and around the world remain safe as they risk so much for our security. We also pray that our town be spared the ravages of hurricanes and other natural disasters, and that everyone associated with the town remains safe and secure. I also have four other items I'd like to do. We lost a friend of the town this week. Dave Gilbride, former town manager, passed away. And I know that our sympathy is with him and our prayers are with his family. We also would like to reach out and our prayers for the Lewiston families about what happened as well. And also Steve Foster passed away as well. And the other one I would do is for the things that are going on in Gaza, that we pray for, some kind of resolution for that as well. So, amen.
Amen. Amen. Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Now, let's turn our attention to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. The next item on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved, but I'd also like to make an amendment to it.
Okay, go ahead.
I have on here, under my thing about planning board membership, I've had a number of discussions with the chairman of the planning board and some of the members of the planning board, and frankly they had a suggestion which I support, and that is that we have a meeting rather than doing this thing in a vacuum and going back and forth. I think the better solution recommended by the chairman of that committee is for the Board of Aldermen and the planning board to get together, to work together to figure the right way to handle these issues. So given that, and I'm hoping I could get the consensus of the board to go along with that, I would like to remove that item.
Okay. And associated with that item is item D, discussion of possible action. Attorney Eads.
Yes, and if it's the board's pleasure to remove that item, that the second item you just referenced, Mayor Pro Tem, should also be removed. Essentially, it's a three-component thing. One, where in our code of ordinances are these going to be located, UDO or not? Two, rules and procedures for the boards themselves. And then three, the ethics policy and procedures for appointment policy that we've been discussing. So it's kind of a threefold thing. I think it's best to address those after a joint meeting.
And also, I'm sorry, I meant to mention this too. Question to the town attorney. I'm assuming with the current board structure, the planning board can still meet and function and everything else. Is that correct?
Yes. I mean, as you know, the ordinance says we have a 7-member board. There are 2 vacancies right now. If you treat that the same way you would the Board of Aldermen on a vacancy, then a quorum would be 3. It's probably safer, since it is a 7-member board in theory, to have a quorum of 4, but as long as there's a quorum, they can continue to meet and conduct business.
Right. I just want to have that clarification, so, thank you.
All right, so, restate.
So I'm gonna make a
Alderman
mo-
Grant, restate, state
Right,
your.
I would
motion.
like to make a motion to remove from the agenda, item under continuing business, D, planning board membership. I would also like to remove E, under the same thing. So both of those would be taken off the agenda, and so I would make that motion.
I'll second that.
And
Thank
technically-
you.
Technically, the
Alderman
motion would be to approve the agenda as amended.
Yeah.
I move, I so move.
And I second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Oh, and I want to clarify that I am Mayor Pro Tem, and I did not give up my right to vote on motions today, even though I'm chairing the meeting.
So did you vote?
I did. It's unanimous.
In fact, you have to vote unless you are excused.
Okay. We're ready for the manager's report. Manager Durian, please.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. First, I'd like to announce and welcome our new Public Works Supervisor who's with us this morning, who's in the back. Al Cablé, can you stand up? Welcome, Al. He has more than 45 years of public works experience with degrees that include engineering management and civil engineering. He brings with him significant experience in public infrastructure with capital improvement projects and is a certified stormwater inspector. So welcome, Al. We welcome you to our team. We're happy to have you here, and I'm confident that you're going to help with taking the town to the next level with projects and services. So welcome. Welcome aboard. The next item I have is regarding fire station number 2. Worked throughout October on project and financing calendars for the fire station project. We finalized bid specification documents with the architect to get the invitation for bid issued. The invitation for bid was issued on October 18th. October 24th, specifications were made available to contractors who wanted to bid on the project. October 31st, we received our audit, and that was sent to the LGC, the Local Government Commission. October 31st, we've also yesterday had a mandatory pre-bid meeting that was held here at Town Hall, and part of that pre-bid meeting was also a site meeting, so contractors that were interested in bidding on the project can go out and look at the site, take pictures of the existing structure that would be demoed. November 1st, which is today's meeting, the board will consider and approve a resolution that's included on today's agenda that gives broad authorization up to $8 million. The original estimate for the fire station build was 6 to 7 that I previously reported on. That still holds true. I did touch base with the architects to get an up-to-date estimate, and they feel that it is still in that realm. However, we needed to give some leeway there should the pricing comes in higher and the board wants to consider the bid, so we do not have to start the process over with the Local Government Commission. November 1st, which is today's meeting.
Before you
you're
leave
all-
that real quick, just a quick question. We're getting them, I know with the LGC, we have to show the ability to pay for it. Do they consider the money that we're getting from Onslow County, the fire tax money at all,
Well,
do we know?
they look at our entire audit. They look at all of our financials, which covers everything.
Got it, thank you.
And we also have a meeting with them as well to go over everything. So today you'll also be, on your agenda is included to authorize, the resolution authorizes a public hearing for the December 6th meeting. So that will be the next step. November 7th at 2 p.m. is the final day and cutoff time for questions from any potential bidders. November 14th, the final addendums will be issued to all bidders. November 21st, bids are due with a public bid opening at 2 p.m., which will be held here at Town Hall. November 21st through the 29th, we will review all bids. November 29th, I've asked that the bid review be completed with a full recommendation for the Board of Aldermen packet, which would be distributed for the December meeting. December 6th, we will hold a public hearing in consideration by the Board of Aldermen to approve the construction contract pending local government commission approval. So everything we do is going to be contingent upon LGC approval. January 9th, the North Carolina Local Government Commission meeting will be held. That is where we will either receive approval or denial of the project. January 15th, we anticipate closing on the financing, so everything will be in place, should everything go as planned, mid-January. Also, too, regarding the fire station, I just want to make note that I had asked Becker Morgan, the architect, to start the process with the permitting for the demolition of the current fire station, so that all permits are ready and in hand for whoever is the successful bidder on the project, so that they can hit the ground running and immediately start the demolition.
Ask one question,
Sure.
How many potential bidders showed up at the pre-bid meeting?
There was 7 plan holders that had received the packages. We had a room full of contractors, which included prime contractors as well as subs. So it was a mixture of the two, but we had a full room. Beach projects, phase 1 permit modification that would have allowed us to start early November to finish the remaining phase 1 work was denied by the state. Fran has continued communication with the state permitting agency as well as the Army Corps of Engineers to work through. But the proximity of phase 1 to the inlet is an environmental concern. In the meantime, the contractor's been contacted knowing this to try to work to see if we can fit both projects in the same time frame. So as of right now, the contract is agreeable to that work plan. So the intent right now is phase 5 is now scheduled to start November 13th, which is a few days ahead of schedule, because we don't anticipate any issues starting a little bit earlier on the phase 5 project because it's not close to the inlet. And phase 1 work will now start on November 16th. And then both projects will be worked simultaneously. Phase 4, again, is anticipated to start in February. And again, that project, the scope of that project is to pick up where we left off in phase 5 and work 2.5 miles north.
Real quick.
So they didn't deny phase 1, they just denied the early start?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so we're still going to do the project?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. The Onwassa booster pump project that I reported on at the last meeting, we had the pre-bid meeting that was scheduled at Town Hall on October 11th as scheduled. 7 contractors had the plans, only 1 bid was received. So the timeline to receive the bids was extended to November 2nd, which is tomorrow. I spoke with Frankie at Onwassa, and he's confident that they will receive more bids by this deadline. Events, I just want to take a minute to just thank everyone who contributed and came out to the first annual Halloween Pet Parade. That's the last time I'll have to say that for a while. And pet costume contest last week. We received a lot of positive feedback. Everyone was very appreciative to the town for holding the event. Thank you to Pet Supplies Plus again for sponsoring the event. Thank you to staff who assisted with the event, to Wendy, Al, along with the Public Works crew, Carrie from the police department, Ricky, Caitlin, who even helped with the signage. So there were a lot of hands in the project. Thank you to Barry for hanging in there that night and selling over $425 worth of town merchandise. So that's a bonus for the town. And thank you to Splash, who had staff on hand to assist, and Ms. Conant, who was on site to sell raffle tickets. So we appreciate everyone's help, and a thank you to everyone who donated raffle baskets, including members on the board that benefited Pause for Purpose. Thank you. The next event, scheduled Wednesday, November 15th, is the Christmas tree lighting, and that'll be held 6 p.m. here at Town Hall. Santa will be here for the tree lighting. The Sneeds Ferry Presbyterian Church choirs will be here to perform. We have face painting. The Kieran Beasley Sea Turtle Rescue Hospital will be here. And the Sneeds Ferry Girl Scout Troop number 361 will be helping to serve hot chocolate and cookies. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions for manager?
No questions, but I would like to also note that even though it was not a official town event on Saturday, the candidates forum, I want to thank Ricky for his being here and help make sure that it was streamed correctly and people got a chance to view it. I also want to thank Susan Meyer for her efforts in making sure that contacting the Topsail Times and making sure they were here and did a good job. And also want to thank the Topsail Times for putting on the event for us.
Okay. All right. Next item on our agenda this morning is the open forum. Clerk Avery, do we have anyone signed up?
Good morning, guys. This question
Jeff,
is really...
could you please?
Oh, I'm
state your
sorry,
name
Jeff
and
Meyer,
address? I know.
2224 New River Inlet Road, number 138. This question is really not a question as much as help from our town attorney. I was recently at a forum where closed-door sessions came up. Now, I know I've heard Joanne and our attorney speak many times of why we, do it. But there were real questions about why we do it, and more importantly, why is it done in conjunction with a normal board meeting? Why couldn't the board do that separate from a meeting, not to tie up the time of people who are coming? Now, I understand it, but I think it would be great for the record if town manager again could state why they have them, and more importantly, why they're done in conjunction with the normal monthly meeting. That's all I have. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem, as chair, would you like me to address some of that?
Please.
The grounds for going into closed session, you mentioned closed door, but it's actually technically called closed session or executive session, it's commonly referred to, vary from consulting with an attorney employed by the municipality to preserve the attorney-client privilege, such as legal advice. Can we do this? Can we not do this? What are the legal implications of this or that? Along that same grounds would be to discuss potential litigation, say, if, hey, this looks like a lawsuit's coming down the road. Obviously, the attorney advice is privileged, just like it would be in a individual going to a lawyer saying, hey, my neighbor threatened to sue me, and the lawyer gives his or her opinion. You don't, that's privileged by law.
Brian, before you leave that,
Sure.
you're a lawyer and I'm a lawyer. You need to explain to people, if you had that same discussion in open session, you have no attorney-client privilege.
Right, you're waiving it. If you waive the attorney-client privilege, that's problematic. I mean, you wouldn't want someone that's suing the town to see our playbook, essentially. That's why the law exists. I mean, there's a few reasons why you can go into closed session. That's the predominant, most popular one, and of course, to discuss pending litigation, if there's existing lawsuits, kind of give the board a status, here are our options, if there's a potential for settlement, et cetera. Those are by and large, the most frequent grounds. There's also grounds to discuss specific personnel. By statute, municipal employee personnel matters are confidential. In fact, it's a misdemeanor if you violate that. And then there's what we call the economic development type thing. If there's some potential economic development, there's a provision for that if it meets certain criteria. And then there's a grounds to go into closed session to instruct staff on a negotiating position. Say we're trying to enter into a contract with a vendor, or we are looking at property to purchase, things of that nature. They've recently changed the statute that you do have to identify the property that you're looking to purchase. But in negotiations, just like if any of you are buying some property, you know, you don't want to say, let's offer this and we're willing to go to there, because that there is now your basement offer, if the public or the property owner knew that. It is customary that those closed sessions occur at a regular board meeting, and they're generally the last thing on the board's agenda. As today's agenda looks like that's the last thing. Sometimes they're brought up earlier because there may be legal issues later on in the agenda, and it's better to go ahead and know kind of our boundaries before we get to that item. That's the exception, not the rule. If you were to call a closed session outside of the context of a regular meeting, then that would be a special meeting. That's a 48-hour notice requirement. Sometimes that happens, but I would say that is, again, the exception, not the rule. So the intent of having it at the end is if people don't want to sit around. You know, I can't speculate as to wasting people's time. I mean, but I do say as a matter of convenience, 99% of the time it's at the end of the meeting. And in all towns that I've ever been associated with and that I've ever worked for, it's common practice. If you're going to have a closed session, you have it during the regularly scheduled meeting at the end of the meeting. It's just not to say you couldn't call a special meeting to have a closed session, but you would have to do that each month. I mean, you can't just, it's calling a special meeting. So, Mayor Pro Tem,
Okay,
is that
thank you.
adequately?
So,
Brian, excuse me,
go ahead, Alderman.
can you also explain what, after the closed session is over, what you have to report out?
Well, it depends on what happens in closed session. Most of the time, it's no actions taken in closed session. If it's an employee matter, generally we'll come out and talk about that. Lawsuits, for instance, if you settle that the statute contemplates, you can agree to the parameters of the settlement in closed session. A lot of times, that's before the other side has agreed. So the law contemplates you don't have to do anything publicly until the settlement's consummated, and then once it's consummated, you announce it. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
So from a practical standpoint, if you've ever gone back and looked at the broadcast of the board meetings, you'll see that the recording is blank for the length of the closed session, and you don't know as a viewer of that video if they're going to come back and say anything or not. So maybe from a practical point of view, we can stop the recording while closed session is going on so that the video doesn't have 30 minutes of just blank screen. But we'll try something different today before we go into closed session, if I can remember to do it. Anyone else like to speak or has signed up? Anyone else signed up?
Susan wants to speak.
Come on up, Susan.
Susan Meyer, 2224 New River Inlet Road. The reason I wanted to speak is I'm speaking on behalf of the planning board, and I just wanted to say thank you to the board. I think that that's going to be a great action to move forward for the planning board and the Board of Aldermen. So thank you.
Okay. Anyone else like to speak? All right, let's move on then. Public presentations and hearings. Do we have Engineer Fran Way online? There he is. Fran, good morning. Hope you can hear us.
Yes, I can.
Okay, take it away.
Okay. I will get into the presentation. Share my screen. Excuse me. Okay, this is the November 2023 update for North Topsail Beach. Here's basically the 5 phases of shoreline, 5 sections of shoreline, oceanfront shoreline along North Topsail Beach, starting with phase 1 up near New River Inlet, down to phase 5 near the Surf City town limit. We have up in phase one this season, and I'll get into these projects individually, but as Alice mentioned, we have the placement of approximately 20,000 cubic yards of material planned this winter, this coming up season that begins on November 16, Thursday, November 16. And there's, some areas that we still have the permitted area is larger. And so that is good to have that kind of permit in hand if in the future any additional work was needed up there. And then we have the state grant in the phase 4 shoreline that will start work, as Alice mentioned, end of February. And then we have the phase 5 project that is ongoing. It's 2/3 complete, and we will finish it out this season. Here's the phase 1 beach truck haul nourishment that's going to happen, starting November 16 here. As Alice mentioned, the inlet is, just right here, and shorebirds and inlets are an additional factor. It's not just, hatching and nesting turtles that we have to be concerned about. And that was with that early start where they had their concerns. This is what got placed last year on seaward of the Topsail Reed Villas, the buildings, half the buildings, 4 through 8. And then the Army Corps of Engineers put their material here. But as you can see, we still have this permitted for truck haul material. So this area of shoreline, we still have permitted, and we can, place material there in the future if needed. The placement this winter will begin just to the southwest of the Topsail Reed Villas and work down to the St. Regis, the Ocean's Edge restaurant. That's an approximate placement here. This is a good area. This is, this coarser material really helps out to kind of stabilize this area. And this area has, seen some dune erosion here lately. We have the phase 5 nourishment that we will begin on Monday, November 13. The remaining work is down here near the Surf City limit. The access is at Gray Street still. We did, and I talked with Alice, and we talked with TI Coastal and Jamie, and we talked with CM Mitchell about additional accesses, and nothing really looked great, so we will use that access at Gray Street. There's probably about 3 months of work left here, November, December, January, and some February. So, hopefully after that, we can kind of give that Gray Street access a break. This is that state grant that we were successful in getting. It will be about 303,000 cubic yards material, and it starts pretty much at Highway 210 as soon as you get onto the island, working down to where the phase 5 project is completed. And this is also a beach project, not a dune project, and we really want to try to widen up that beach for recreational purposes, and it also protects the dune. Where, some of these areas where there isn't a whole lot of beach, that dune is getting hit a little too often at, these high tides and events and just wave events. For the Town Beach project updates, we've got that phase 1 starting this winter, and the New River Inlet Management Master Plan, the EIS, for the, looking at all the different options for the EIS for the inlet area. That is under development. I have been talking with the Dow Cordy, trying to get them to they're refining some of the aspects of the EIS. And I have talked with Alice a little bit about that. The state grant nourishment will be, we'll start here at the end of February. That's the plan, and put material in that phase 4 shoreline. and then complete the Phase 5 project with the remaining volume, and then continue working with North Topsail Beach, the finance officer, and DEC on, all the FEMA and state funding issues, and just making sure that's all coordinated. And then permitting coordination for all the projects. And then additionally, the North Carolina Beaches, Inlets, Waterways Association, NC Byway, is having a conference here in November 16 and 17, and I will be presenting on North Topsail Beach and on the truck haul elements. And I haven't spoken with Alice yet, but if Alice, wants to get up there and, speak for 5 minutes, or even maybe possibly an alderman, I'm up to that. And usually the conference attendees enjoy that as well. And I can coordinate with Alice a little bit more, in the coming weeks. And that is my presentation.
All right, thanks, Fran. Any questions for Fran?
I have a comment.
Go ahead.
I think Larry Strother ought to present on behalf of BISAC at Byways. BISAC, Byways.
Okay. Alderman Grant?
Bygones being bygones. And this is actually, I'm going to look at Caitlin for a second here. If I read your financial report correctly, we have already gotten the Phase 4 money in already? So we will not be out of pocket to do the projects that we're seeing right now. So we have the cash from them already.
Yes.
Wow.
And
So, I mean, that's huge for us. I mean, it means, I
Yeah.
hope the state's not listening. The interest is going the correct way on this particular one, correct? That's excellent. Thank you.
And it
Kate.
was also, if you recall, it was our understanding that we would be reimbursed. We also reached back out to the state to get in writing that, because we alerted them we were receiving money, to make sure that they were aware of that. We were receiving the money in advance, and we've got written documentation that acknowledges that.
Excellent job, Alice. I mean, that's pretty amazing, because that means we were looking at doing another special obligation bond, right? The same kind of financing to get the 4 money, and now we don't have to do that all. And at today's interest rates, if you were doing $10.5 million for a year, that's a fair amount of cash. That's excellent. Thank you.
Alderman, Fontana?
Yeah, Fran, you mentioned Phase 4 was going to start probably early to mid-February. How far will you get along, you think, until we have to stop in May? And then when it comes back to starting in November, do you anticipate you going into January, February? How long do you think before all Phase 4 is finished?
Yes, excuse me. The Phase 4 should be about 5 months, take 5 months. And so we're hopefully going to get about 2.5 months. This coming up winter, we'll do, half of February and then March and April. We can try to get a permit mod into May, but that's when the traffic starts up and the production rates go down. But we could still get an extension into May, but then it will start up, and then there should be, I would say just conservatively, 3 months left where it would be, November, December, January, and then probably, hopefully they could finish by then of the following season.
Just one quick question. Actually, he just asked it. We got the extension on Phase 4, correct?
We've got an extension request in. We received one so far, and we put in another one to clarify it, which we're pending an answer on that right now. But all of the timelines and when they're going to start and stop, that's all on the town's project page. So everything that Fran just reviewed, it's on our project page.
Okay.
And then just
thank you.
one, thank you, by the way. I had a comment on the presentation I made, and I sent a note to you on the Phase 5 beach project, the 15, about the individual was claiming that was a wasted project that didn't create any value. And I can forward the email that Fran sent back to me. It said the 2015 project established Phase 5 as a FEMA, quote, engineered beach. This is incredibly valuable. And so I think the proof is in the pudding, Fran. We've got a lot more sand that went into 5 because of it being an engineered beach, and that protection continues, so.
I want to comment on that just briefly as well. I was on the board when we approved that project, and that project was in place when Hurricane Florence came through here. And that project spared a lot of the houses down on that end of the town, and it was not a waste of time or money. It did what beach projects are supposed to do. It protected the shoreline, and it protected the infrastructure and the homes behind the shoreline. So whoever said that is misinformed.
And just a real quick follow-up on that is, and that's what Fran had confirmed with me, if that project hadn't happened and Florence hit, right, there would have been no beach renourishment. It would have only been dune renourishment, and we picked up another 600,000 cubic yards of sand. Is that fair, Fran? Because it was an engineered beach that we would not have had if it hadn't been one. So,
Exactly.
you know, I'm figuring $20 to $30 million worth of benefits already.
And probably some of those houses on Topsail Road would have been out in the Atlantic Ocean.
Yes. Right. Okay. Fran, one other question for you. Going back to phase one, the 20,000 cubic yards, you're talking hundreds of thousands of yards in phase 5 and phase 4. Just to give the property owners up there in the phase 1 area that's affected, how wide a beach do you think the 20,000 cubic yards will build?
It will build anywhere between 40 and 60 feet wide. It's a fairly it's going to be a good sized beach.
Okay.
And that is kind of in that area that we do think it will stay there, you know, and it will spread and benefit to other shorelines.
Okay, thank you. Anything else for Fran?
Thank you. Excellent.
Thanks a lot, Fran. We appreciate your report, and
Okay.
we'll see you at
Okay.
Byways.
Yes, see you there.
Okay, thank you. All right, that brings us to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve?
Thank you, Alderman Pledl. Second?
Second.
I heard Alderman Fontana first, I believe, for the second.
No, it was a race. I lost.
Just trying to make it clear for the clerk.
Yes, sir.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. It's unanimous. Nancy? Continuing business. Coastal Barrier Resources Act update by Alderman Leonard.
Yes, I was on the phone earlier today with Nick Miller in the Water, Fisheries, and Wildlife Subcommittee at the House to find out what's next. Our bill is going to go in front of the full committee for markup at a date to be determined. And what I was calling her to find out was if we actually had a date yet, and she said, no, we don't. Congressman Murphy has contacted via letter all of the Republicans on the full committee requesting their support to advance the bill. And once it gets through the next wicket, which is this markup, if it's successful there, then it will go to the House floor for a full vote. So that's where we are. No dates yet. I was really hoping to have a date to provide to the town today's meeting, and I'll stay on it. As soon as I get something, I'll let Alice know. We'll get it out on the webpage and do what we can do. But that's where we're at.
Thank you,
Any
Alderman.
questions?
I really can't thank you enough for your efforts with the Cobra. It goes back many, many years, and I think we are finally seeing this Cobra issue coming to hopefully a successful conclusion fairly soon.
Well, there's light at the end of the tunnel. I'm just hoping it's not the headlight from an oncoming train. But I think we're finally getting somewhere. A lot of people have done a lot of work on this over the years, and hopefully we can carry this thing across the goal line.
Thank you. All right, next item is memorandum of understanding with the Department of Transportation Manager Durian, please.
Yes,
I
thank you.
can take that if you like, Al.
Sure, go for it.
As you will recall, we've been discussing this for several months now. In fact, back in August, initially we wanted more deliverables spelled out, what we're getting. And we executed a memorandum of understanding in August. Subsequent to that, they sent over a document called TIP Agreement, Preliminary Engineering, which I suspect is a template document the DOT requires to get it in their TIP program. The document, that document was not accompanied by any attachments. And the document states that the parties to this agreement, and I'm not going to read it, the whole thing, together with all attachments, exhibits, et cetera, where there were no attachments accompanying the document. And the concerning part is that says any attachments that refer to this agreement represents the entire understanding between the parties with respect to its subject matter and supersedes any previous communication. Well, the August memorandum of understanding is clearly previous to this newest one. And so what we're seeking here, and Alice, Ms. Darren, feel free to chime in, is the authority for the town manager to execute this TIP agreement, provided that they agree to incorporate the August memorandum of understanding, which the DOT, Chad Combs, did execute that as well. So, because otherwise this new TIP agreement stands on its own, and as it states on its face, the prior understanding goes away. It's called a merger clause and contract law. Ms. Darren, you want to add anything to that, or?
No, you
So
covered it.
if it's the inclination of the board to give us that authorization, we would like it to be subject to, my final review and the incorporation of the terms, at least the terms of the previous memorandum of understanding.
Okay, does the board have any questions for your attorney or the manager? All right, I'd like to request a motion to authorize the town manager to sign the TIP agreement subject to the town attorney's final approval.
Yeah, I'll make such a motion.
Thank you, Alderman Fontana, and Alderman Leonard seconded. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, same side. It's unanimous. All right, our next item is the activity update response by Alderman Grant.
I'll actually try to make this brief. Interesting, gone out and I posted, if you remember at the last meeting, I put together a PowerPoint that went through with the board and everything else. Most of the stuff was very positive. I've got HOA meetings set up in the next month with 2 of the different HOAs. The feedback is generally there is so much misinformation out there in terms of what's going on in the town. I see one of our BISAC members out there, and I remember when I first did the spreadsheet that Fran put together as to where all the money had been spent in the beach, the people's reaction was, well, that can't be the case. And I think the same thing is out there. I had a number of things, one related to the Phase 5 project and whether it's worthwhile or not, and that it was terrible. Responded back to those. I can provide those answers to the board if you want. I think the other issue, and I'm going to try to get my hands around this in the future, is people don't understand, and I didn't either, okay, what the revenue neutral provision is. When I first looked at that, I thought it meant that my taxes at my house were going to stay the same. That's not the way it works. And the reality is, if your tax, even though we dropped our rate a little bit and the county did, you had people's houses who said that their taxes doubled. That's possible because, but that also would mean that their house went up more than 100% in value during that 4-year period. All right, so the way that it works is it's a very property-specific calculation, meaning that under something like that, if my house went up 5%, and between us and the county, we dropped the rate 10%, I actually paid less tax. If my house went up 100%, all right, it doesn't matter how much was dropped by the other ones. And so I think that people get confused with that issue, that they think that their personal taxes, their personal property taxes are driven by that. And I'm trying to get my hand around a way to explain that to people, because I remember that I did the calculation with it. And so you have, and I'm not going to write the term winners or losers. An interesting thing was brought up by a very good friend of mine was, and look, I'm in the same boat as everybody else. My taxes doubled, all right? But the reality is, and I haven't gotten an answer from the county on this, if I have a house whose property value was $100,000 and Tom buys it for $200,000, I don't know if Tom immediately starts paying property taxes on $200,000 or it stays at the $100,000 level. But I think that what this individual said to me when he was looking at it was, so what you're telling me is your house went, I'm going to use, went from $500,000 to $1 million over 4 years, and now you're having to pay on the value of that house. He said, you ought to be grateful because your house didn't go from 500 to $1 million in one day. It went over 4 years. So for 4 years, you were not paying on what the market value of your house was, in effect, by, you know, and I thought, I mean, I'm not sure that anybody likes that because their taxes went up, but that actually is a fair statement that, you know, my house didn't, you know, my house, my wife's here, our house didn't go up double in price in 1 year. It went up over a period of time. I'm having a hard time, I have to figure out a way to explain that to people. But I think the other thing too is when you look at the town's finances and stuff, any extra money that we have gotten through property taxes has either gone to the capital projects or the beach. And, you know, I think as another friend of mine said, you can either pay for it now or you can pay for it later. So I think the general response is very good. I've got HOA meetings set up, open to anybody that wants to have another HOA meeting. But again, it's a very interesting process for me as to how much misinformation was out there.
A couple of comments. I'm pretty sure that the tax rate is paid by the new owner on the valuation and not the sales price. Second is when I got my tax bill, I did my monkey math to figure out how much valuation or what the tax rate would have to go down by for me to not pay any, you know, pay the same rate of taxes. And the tax rate between county and town would have had to been dropped 18 cents a hundred to account for the valuation change in my house. And that was after I went in and challenged it and got them to drop $250,000 off the valuation of the house. So they really hit us hard, and I don't know if it was consistent across the board in the county. And there's been times in the past when they've had some of these valuation spikes, and they had one about 10 years ago, that they really hit hard anything that was near the water, and it wasn't just out on the island, but it was also
Sound or ocean.
Yeah, sound or ocean. Even these places where these fishermen, like where Grant's Oyster House is.
Yep.
And they actually ran a lot of people off their properties because they couldn't afford to pay the taxes.
Right. And just real quick on that, there actually is on the county website, I'll try to find it and post the thing. You can actually go in and find the average increase in the reval for the area you're in. For example, the reval in my area went up 120%. Other areas were 15 and 20%, okay, depending on where you were. Which I thought, because you scroll on it and you say, okay, this is where I am, and they'll have an area that's highlighted that'll say the average within that area was this amount. And it goes exactly to your point, and that is, it really, if you're on the water, anything on the ocean, I ran into a gentleman yesterday who's got a place in Hampton Colony, and we were talking a little bit about that. Now, they rent their home during the summer. And I said, what'd you think? He says, yeah, my taxes went up, but do you know how much my rental income went up during that same period of time? And so, you know, he looked at it and said, I'm way ahead in terms of the rental income I'm getting. The hardest hit thing, and Ms. Plettles brought this up, is what about the people that live here full-time that don't rent their houses? And I think that's the hardest thing. I heard the homestead thing brought up in the forum. I've actually started looking into that. It's not really allowed in North Carolina as in other states, and also the state that was mentioned in the forum basically has the same homestead exemptions we do. So anyway, I'll leave it at that. I don't want to take too much time.
I believe that the Homestead Act in North Carolina was declared unconstitutional by the state Supreme Court back in 2007.
Alderman Plettle, you have a comment?
Yes, Rick, I would really like to thank you for bringing clarity and clearing up misinformation with your presentations and your continued presentations. Thank you very much. And I'm also thinking that perhaps once we get through the holidays, maybe in January or February, maybe we have an open house and have some of these issues as well as any others for the residents.
I'll buy the donuts if we can get people to show up. Because I think the more people that you can get in front, some of this stuff is, look, it's taken me a while to understand this stuff. It's not simple. You know, the revaluation thing, the revenue neutral stuff is not what I believed it was. or that my house, my taxes were gonna stay the same under that. That's not the way it works. I mean, and that's the urban legend stuff that's out there. So I'd be happy to help support that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'd just also like to add, I think the Connie's idea of the open house is wonderful. For those that were here for the candidates forum Saturday, or weren't here, this room was full. There was quite a bit of interest in the election, quite a bit of interest in learning how the town operates and where the town stands on a lot of things. And I was very pleased with the turnout, and I think it was wonderful that everybody got to learn something, including myself. So it was good, and I think the open house would be a wonderful idea.
Yeah, let's be sure the minutes show that idea, clerk. All right, moving on, new business. First is item A, crosswalk lighting with Chief Sword. Could you come on up to the front and use the microphone so we can hear you?
Well, good evening. So the police chief and I were tasked with assessing crosswalks for the possibility of needing crosswalk lighting. The town has 5 approved DOT crosswalks, and they range from the north end to the south end. I've been on the phone a lot with the DOT. We've talked about it. I reached out to TAPCO and got a quote. This quote, it's all solar powered. It's one for each side. It has a spotlight on it because the area it needs to go dimly lit in the afternoon, so it'll come on for like 40 seconds and then shut off with the light. So it has a feature that other crosswalks won't need. We assessed, we talked about how do we approve one crosswalk and not the other 4 for the town as the public safety heads in the town, and that's not feasible. So we talked about scaling them in, doing a couple this year, a couple next year, and then that'll just leave 1 instead of trying to do all 5 at one time, to give you some options. But that's pretty much our look at the crosswalks.
Are these like push to cross?
Yes, sir.
Kind
You
of
walk up, push a button.
systems?
They'll illuminate. The lights will start flashing.
And so the driver can see from a ways away from the
Correct.
crosswalk, the lights are flashing.
It doesn't
They
mean they're
still
going to
have
stop.
to yield, there's no red light, right?
No's-
They still
no's.
have to yield to a pedestrian in the crosswalk in that situation. when
Correct.
The lights start flashing. Okay,
I got some questions, Mayor Pro Tem.
go
For the
ahead.
benefit of our citizens, where are each of the 5 state-approved crosswalks?
One's at 790 New River, 465 New River, 272 New River, which is right here, 4021 Island Drive, and 3632 Island Drive. Those are the 5 DOT approved
Okay.
crosswalks.
Wasn't there also part of this request to recommend locations for additional crossings?
No, sir.
Manager, was there?
Well, we were looking at overall everything. We've been getting more requests since this information was put out to look at more crosswalks overall, but I think that the recommendation is that we focus on the town ones at this point in time, or the
Correct.
DOT ones.
So the cost,
So this could potentially lead, there's going to be probably a request, as these go in, just so you're aware of more requests down the road. I do foresee that.
so the estimated cost was $8,142.10 for each of these crosswalks. That's materials only, is that right?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
What's the installation plan and who's paying for it?
We haven't found a general contractor to install them yet to give us a quote.
Okay. So we don't have a price. We don't have really a total delivered price.
No, sir.
Okay. We have 1 quote, 1 estimate. Do our rules require that we need 3?
Yes.
Okay. How are these things going to hold up in the salt air?
The gentleman from TAPCO, he's installing them at Wrightsville Beach, Carolina Beach, and he says they're having no issues with them, I mean, longevity of equipment, I can't.
So we're going to phase these in over time. And again, what's the plan for that? How long?
That's going to be at y'all's discretion. If y'all would like to do 1 to 2 a year, 2 to 3 a year, that's,
Do we know how long it takes to put one of these in?
I would imagine about a week, would you say? I'm going to leave that to the expert.
Okay.
Would you say about a week to install a full set of, at a crosswalk? By the time the concrete sets and...
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the board. My experience has been you usually give it 30 days because of the undergrounding. You make sure everything's marked and everything's set. I would say 2 to 3 weeks, as Chief is saying, you'd be able to have it, making sure everything is arrived on site and been ordered. That's been my experience. I put one in New Bern and we had to wait 30 days just for some parts. And so I think if we get everything in, we get it installed within 2 to 3 weeks, we can have it done then.
Okay. Couple more questions. Since Island Drive is a state highway, New River Inlet Road is a state road, these devices are going to be placed adjacent to state-approved crosswalks. And we're looking at the cost of town for just the materials for over $40,000 in the equipment. Have we explored the possibility of the availability of state funds to help defray the cost of the town? I'm looking at something like a DOT grant, maybe something from the Golden Leaf Foundation. We looked at any of that yet?
No, sir, I was just told to assess the crosswalks. But the DOT is not going to assist in paying for these. I do know that.
Okay, well, part of it is to help us figure out how we're going to pay for it. So that's kind of why I asked the question. Mayor Pro Tem, that's all I have. I don't frankly think we have enough information at this point to render a decision.
Can I just make one quick comment, and I'm going to kick it to our DOT guy here? What I understand about phasing them in, I candidly don't like the idea of picking winners and losers as to where this thing is going to go. So if we're going to do something like this, my feeling is either do it or don't do it. But I don't like having, the one by my house is going in, but the other one's not coming in for 6 months or a year. I don't like that. If we're going to do it, let's do it. I'd like to get a handle, as Tom said, on what the cost is going to be. Other than that, I'm going to kick it to the DOT man.
Well, I don't know about DOT man, but I did have one question on the existing crosswalks. Will we add signs that say state law requires you to stop? I haven't noticed that on the crosswalks right now.
So they don't say that, and on the quote he gave us, apparently this is exactly what they're putting up in other towns, and there is not a sign that says that on those.
Well, I've seen them elsewhere. I don't know why they wouldn't put that on there.
Yeah, I don't know.
And that's relatively inexpensive, just to put a sign out.
Alderman, if I could assist, those are optional, as well as stenciling into the pavement, additional signage. That's all not MUTCD. That's the requirements that we have to run through to make sure we have what is required by the standards, and that's what Chief is saying. But TAPCO, which actually installed the one that we did in New Bern, is giving us the bottom line of what needs to be installed. Any additional signing and stenciling, that's going to be on us to go ahead and do. That's totally within the discretion of the jurisdiction to do. Also, if I may add, perhaps what we do is rate those crosswalks using NCDOT standards, and we can come back with a prioritization based on that. Accident history, geometrics, everything. Let them, it's their facility, let them tell us, and then from that, I believe we'll have the information.
Yeah. How much did that cost in New Bern? Do you know, the crosswalk?
All in.
Yeah, it was 50,000.
For one crosswalk?
It was the lighted crosswalk, the in-roadway lighting.
Oh, okay, so that's
Right,
different
as
than
well
what,
as they
that's
already had
different
the
than what we're
blinking
looking
light.
at.
That's right. No, we're just looking at the signage. So this is, if I can say in my experience, it's pretty reasonable. I think though the timeline and also looking at it from a holistic is probably the best way that we should move forward before just.
And so your best guess is not 50. What's your best guess for what we're, I'm just asking generalities. Are we talking, it's 8 plus 10, it's 8 plus 20, it's 8 plus?
It's been my experience that you take the costs and you're gonna add a factor of 1.5. So you're probably looking at 30, 35 for this one here. And each one, a fair figure, maybe the board might want to consider, and the town manager could, you know, massage that a bit, would be about 50 a year, and you would have your phasing, you know, of one crosswalk or two a year. Again, I don't want to say a caution, but I would think a prudent way would be to go forward with what NCDOT sees as far as the criteria, rate that, come back. We may have a priority set before us, and then it's up to the board on how we move forward.
Well, and I like that too, and I appreciate that information. I did a little research, and I did come up with a North Carolina Department of Transportation, Division of Highways, Traffic Engineering Safety Systems Branch, standard practice for crosswalks, mid-block unsignalized signing. The question came up about, do we need additional crosswalks? And there's a bunch of guidelines. For one thing, they suggest that we don't have any crosswalks where the speed limit is greater than 35 miles per hour, unless they approved it, which I assume obviously they have. The second criteria, which I think is something that we could look at, it says a minimum pedestrian crossing volume of 25 pedestrians per hour for at least 4 hours of a typical day should be made in order to warrant a mid-block crosswalk. I think the town, possibly next summer when we have the, you know, regular seasonal tourists here and people using the crosswalks, I don't know if we have the resources to hire some high school students, some volunteers or somebody to these locations where people have requested crosswalks. If we can get them out there with a clipboard and just count and see how many people do cross at there and use that as a criteria for what that we should be looking at adding additional crosswalks.
Yeah, so this is the first I've heard about additional crosswalks. I was just told to assess these. So, but I don't disagree. There's probably areas where we have higher traffic than the ones we already have.
Okay, Alderman Pledl, did you have a comment, question?
Yes, the crosswalks that we already have, would we be doing improvements for the high visibility road markings where we have the advanced yield and stopping, yield or stop, I guess is how it is, and then advanced signage saying, you know, a pedestrian crossing. And really, I'd like to see, if we're going to bring this back, I would like to see some graphics, maps on where these are. I'd also like to see more than one contractor where you got the information from. I saw it was from Wisconsin, and it said shipping and handling's not included. I don't know what shipping and handling would be, but I imagine it's pretty pricey. So I would just like to see a little more, but thank you.
Okay, and one question I had, they said there's 5 approved crosswalks. Yeah, could you give me more of a geographical description of the 790 New River Inlet Road location?
So that'd be Villa Capriani, that area.
We have a severe public safety issue on New River Inlet Road at Onslow County BA1 parking lot because new houses were constructed directly across the street, so visitors using the county parking lot, instead of walking straight across the street in that curve of the road, and even though it's 35 miles an hour, cars are going, you know, that's a pretty quick pace, they have to walk diagonally to the edge of the property now to get across the road. So instead of going straight across, we got people walking at an angle. They are exposed for a much longer time. So part of the work we'd like you to do when you bring this back to us is either figure out if the county wants to work with us on protecting their parking lot for pedestrians crossing New River Inlet Road, or if it's something we're going to have to take on, and again, try to get grants for this. So I think as a board, we're asking you to go back, revisit this, And I really feel we need to evaluate other sites than I mentioned there at BA 1, see if there are other sites in town where we should be thinking about crosswalks in the future. Maybe some kind of a poll of the residents on the website or some way to get some input from areas where people have felt threatened trying to get across the road because there's so many people wanting to cross the road either direction to get to the beach or get back from the beach. So I think we need a more thorough evaluation of the crosswalk situation when you are able to work together and bring this back to the board.
And that was my suggestion about utilizing the DOT criteria, maybe getting somebody out there, obviously not full-time, but maybe a day or two a week, just to look at that. I'm familiar with the crosswalk that Alderman, I got him promoted, Alderman Benson mentioned. There's actually a sign there that says crosswalk, pedestrian crossing, but the crosswalk is not, there is no paved or marked crosswalk. There's just a sign there,
Right.
so I think
And it's only the southbound side that has the sign. The northbound sign has no sign there. So, I mean, that could be put up today if you had the sign.
Could
Could we not request the DOT to put out traffic counters
Yes, ma'am.
instead of
Yeah.
people?
I like that.
yeah.
Little boxes, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
So the open-ended questions that we have here that have been expressed by the board, could we agree to have this come back to us with the answers during the old business portion of the December meeting?
Sure.
I have one more question. Once
With
these-
graphics, sorry.
With these signaled ones, who does the maintenance on those? Is that part of a contract with the supplier, or does the town provide maintenance on the signals?
Typically, the agencies provide it through some service. Some can do it through the county, or we could extend the MOU type of agreement with NCDOT. I mean, there's a number of ways, but we would have to head that off.
Thank you.
And one, I don't want to beat this horse to death, but one other comment, and I'm not quite sure about the Parole bill money. Is that money we receive for state roads or for non-state roads?
State.
So if we're maintaining the traffic or the lights on there, is that not something we could get reimbursed through Parole bill funding?
Caitlin, do you want to speak on the Powell bill?
I'm assuming if they're not paying for the first part of it, they're probably not paying for the second part of it, but I could be wrong. You never know. Yeah.
One's a state highway, one's a state road.
Yeah.
So the Powell bill sends us money 2 times a year, and essentially we rack that up. So we have a restricted funds in our general fund balance. So you can use that for different things other than just street maintenance. I'll have to look at the fine print and see if this would qualify. They do have like bike path as an option. There's lots of other little side projects you can do other than street maintenance, but I would check before I say yes or no.
Well, I seem to recall when I was working with the city of High Point, we would bill them for traffic signals, for the
Yes.
electricity that was used to light the traffic signals, and
Yeah,
I
I
would
think
think
that's
that this
something that's in
crosswalk
there.
signalization would be eligible.
Yes.
If they approved the signals for the crosswalk, then they're in essence improving the maintenance
Right.
of it.
Yeah, I'll confirm that for you guys.
Okay. Thank you, Caitlin.
So
All
just
right, Chief, are you clear on what we'd like to have you do? for
Yeah,
our
I'm
December-
turning it over to the experts. This is outside of my wheelhouse.
You're still in charge, Chief.
I mean, I'm gonna help him, you know, because I've already met with the DOT. I've got all their emails, and he's met with the DOT since he's been here. So we're gonna stay on it.
Actually, I think that's the manager's decision.
Well, I think it needs to be jointly worked with because you all know the history and the public safety aspect with the roadways, so you still need to be on that,
Oh, yeah.
in that process. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, let's move on under new business resolution R 2023-06, authorizing installation financing contract, providing for certain other related matters that includes demolition of existing fire station number 2, et cetera, et cetera. Manager Duran.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Yes, this resolution, should you choose to move forward with it, improve it, it outlines, it goes forth with everything that I detailed in the project timeline during my report. So again, it's authorizing us for the publicly go forward with the project, pending LGC approval, of course, and going forward with the scheduling of the public hearing for the December 6th meeting. So everything that I basically outlined as far as that goes, and to proceed with demolition as well.
So any questions for the manager? Are you satisfied with all the ramifications of what's being proposed?
Yes.
Okay.
Interest rates right now, we're looking at about 5% too, just so you're aware.
Okay. Do I have a motion to accept the resolution R 2023-06?
So moved.
Alderman Leonard, thank you. Second?
Second.
Alderman Plettle, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. It's unanimous, clerk. Okay, where are we? Open forum. Would anyone like to come forward for open forum? We're rapidly coming to the end of our agenda. We're ready for the attorney's report. No report, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem has report next. My report is thank you for being here, and I encourage everybody to get out and vote for who you want to be on this board. That's my report. Alderman Grant, we're going to start with you this time.
I think I gave an update on the presentation and stuff, and also I need to apologize to Alice. I'm on the Onwassa board, and Frankie did tell me they'd only gotten one bid, and so when she texted me, I forgot to tell her that Frankie had texted us that they only got the one bid in so far, so my apologies. You had to reach out to me on that. The Onwassa thing, I think I mentioned this everything just real quick. At our board meetings, the Onwassa board meetings, nobody shows up. They have 0 people show up for those. But also, Onwassa's looking at closing the Plurus deal pretty soon. They basically have gotten the bonds out there, gotten approval for that. I think they're going another step with the LGC, but they're also looking at potentially over $200 million of capital expenditures over the next couple of years for water, for sewer, and everything else. So they're trying to do, and I think it came up in the forum about water pressure and that kind of stuff. They are trying to address that stuff, but there are some big dollars involved in getting it done. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Fontana.
I just pretty much want to echo what Alderman Benson said earlier. Next Tuesday, we have an opportunity to utilize our right as American citizens to vote, and we ought to take advantage. Not every country obviously has that freedom to do that. So I don't, I want you to vote for me, but if I just would prefer that you just go and vote. That's all I have.
Alderman Leonard.
Yes, several
Mike.
things. Can you hear me now? First of all, we've got the NC Byway Fall Conference, 16, 17 November in Wilmington. I know there's several people from the town, both the board and BISAC and the manager be attending. Talk about voting a little bit. I got to witness firsthand a country vote for the first time when I was in Iraq in 2005. And they waited in line to go through metal detectors and be waved, like with the hand wand thing, just to get in and do something that we take for granted. And as a society, our numbers are just dismal percentage-wise compared to people who've never had that right and have it for the first time. So get out and vote. I appreciate everything that was done to set the forum up. It was probably the best run one of those that I've been a part of, and I think it's my third shot at it. Hopefully third time will be a charm. We'll talk about Dave Gilbride a little bit. We lost Dave, our former manager. He lost his battle with cancer on Sunday. You know, in addition to being our former manager, Dave was my best friend. You know, when he was diagnosed, he was given a year to live, and he managed to beat the odds for almost 3 years. Everybody who sits up here knew him and knew him well and loved him. But Dave, after he was diagnosed, managed to squeeze every drop of life out of the time he had left, all the way to his final days. And his zest for life all the way to the end was really nothing short of inspirational. There'll be a celebration of life for Dave, open to everyone, to be held this Saturday, November the 4th, 11 a.m. at the Gathering down in Surf City. And I would really like everybody to be there that can. I'm on the dime to give remarks, which is going to be hard because I'm going to have to write them down or we'll be there all month. I'd like to wish everyone an early happy Thanksgiving. I'd also like to wish a happy birthday to the world's finest fighting force, the United States Marine Corps, celebrating the 248th anniversary of its founding on the 10th of this month. We have a number of Marines in our various town departments, former Marines. I'd like to extend a happy birthday and a Semper Fi to each of them. I'd like to also wish all of our veterans a happy Veterans Day. We also have a significant number of military veterans, along with those people who served in the Air Force, on our staff and in our town departments. And I'd like to wish each of them a happy Veterans Day. Right, Chief? Finally, on another somber note, if you could put it up, Ricky. We observe another important date this month. We have a street at the north end of our town named Gunnery Sergeant D.W. Boatman Drive. There's also a plaque on the wall, the back wall of this room, commemorating the dedication of the street in his memory. Gunnery Sergeant Darrell Boatman died on November 4th, 2005 at Landstuhl Regional Medical Center in Germany from wounds sustained November 2nd, 2005 from an IED while he was conducting combat operations in the village of Habaniya, Iraq in the Al-Anbar province. He was a member of the 8th Engineer Support Battalion, Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, and the gunny left behind a wife and 2 children. Semper Fidelis, Gunny. This concludes my report.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Plettle.
Yes, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out and thank you, those who are watching from home. I want to say I appreciate all the hard work Alice and her staff have been doing, and I am especially thrilled with the work that's being done towards the new fire department and the new fire truck, which is really exciting. Like Alice said, we had a great Halloween event at the park. It was very well attended and it was a lot of fun. Please join us again for the tree lighting on November 15th. That's going to be a lot of fun too. It's really great to have these events that the town can participate in and just really have a good time. I will be going to the North Carolina Byways Conference, that's NC Beach Inlet and Waterways. That's coming up in 2 weeks, and it's really an invaluable resource for the town, for the board members to go. If you don't really know much about it, part of its mission is to encourage government action and funding, educate and advocate for effective federal and state policy, and facilitate environmentally sound scientific and engineering solutions for our threatened beaches, inlets, and waterways. Also, we had a great political forum here last Saturday. If you were unable to attend the event, you can still see it online. The town website has a link to it. I want to thank Susie Meyer and Ricky and Topsail Times newspaper for really getting this event going. One-stop voting is still available through November 4th if you'd like to vote early, or come on out on Election Day. I humbly ask you for your vote, but like Fred said, even if you don't want to vote for me, just come out and vote. These are the people who are going to represent you in the town on this board. And one last thing, we lost a good man this week with, as Tom was talking about, Dave Gilbride. He was a good man and he did good things for this town. And I'd also like to echo the respectful military remarks that Tom made as well. And everybody, please have a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Okay, we are going to, given Jeff's comment, take a 2-minute break before we go into closed session so that we can network before we go into closed session.
I don't think we need to then.
Brian doesn't have any updates.
Oh, okay. So we amend the agenda and go to adjournment. Do I have a motion? to
So moved.
adjourn? Alderman Leonard, the second.
Second.
Alderman Fontana, all in favor, aye. We are adjourned.
This is a record vote of minutes.